second row in the middle stand up, please? Just the first two rows. In the middle. Yeah. All right. This represents the people in the world who have never heard about the love and forgiveness of Jesus. Did you know that? You can sit down. Did you know that almost 3 billion people are totally unreached by the gospel? That means that 3/7 of the world's population has virtually no effective access to the gospel. 3/7 of the world's population. That is a huge amount of people. In a place like America, where Jesus is available at every street corner, it's hard to imagine the darkness and hopelessness these people are living in. The only way that many of these people hear about God's good news is if Christians go and tell them. Much of the time, this involves cross-cultural missions, since entire people groups, and often even some countries, are so isolated that no insiders know about the good news. Jesus gave a mandate to evangelize the world in the Great Commission when he said, "Go to all the world and make disciples." As a missions major, I have had the opportunity to hear about many ways that missionaries have affected the world around them and made change for the positive. Involvement in missions is a God-given privilege, and I don't want any of you to miss out on that. All Christians not only ought to be involved in missions, it is our calling. As Brooke talked about last week, one of the ways to be involved is to go, but that's not an option for all of us, and many of us are not called to full-time missions. In fact, most of us aren't. However, even those of us who aren't going full-time can still get involved right here. We can still participate in a big and important way. In fact, the Apostle John made this clear in 3 John 8, when he was talking about a problem that one of the church was having. They had sent missionaries to this church to talk about some other problems that were going on, to evangelize around, and that church had actually rejected the missionaries and slandered them and sent them back. To address this, the Apostle John said, "Therefore, we have to support people like these, that we may be fellow workers for the truth. Without people on the home front, field missionaries could not exist. There are many ways that lay people can get involved in missions: prayer, giving, mobilizing, welcoming, sending, and advocating." The reason that many American Christians do not get involved in missions is that they are not aware of or do not understand the incredible need for lay people's support in missions. Currently, 90% of the church's resources are spent on itself. 90%. That means that 90% of what we give to the church is going to reach Christians and nominal Christians, and only a very small fraction of the remaining 10% is actually going to reach the people who need it the most. Less than a quarter of missionaries are working among unreached people groups, and only 0.37% of Christian workers are actually among the unreached. This is a huge problem. The only way this problem can be fixed is if one person makes a decision right now to get involved in one way. That person is you. Imagine the impact that this room could have on thousands of lost and hurting people if every one of us decided to get involved. There's a little kid in a hut somewhere in Asia crying because he's hungry. There's a teen widow in Africa who is caring for her children and her siblings because her parents and husband have died of AIDS. There's a man in the Middle East who's doing everything he can to get the attention of Allah and various tribal leaders because he just needs to feed his family. These people are just beyond reach. But if you make it possible for missionaries to go and help them, you can change their lives and their eternities. I read a really good book by Floyd McClung, Living on the Devil's Doorstep. It's about his missions outreach in the red light districts of Europe. And I have a really great story that I wish I had time to tell you. I'll just give you the overview, and maybe you want to read the book for yourself. There was a young woman named Marika who was living and working in the red light district, and she was seriously ill when the missionaries found her there. And they ended up nursing her back to health, telling her about Jesus. She wanted to join them, but she had ties to her old way of life, so she kind of flip-flopped back and forth for a while. But they just continued to welcome her, and finally she got out of that lifestyle, became a Christian, trained, and went back to the red light district to help people who were like her. You cannot make a difference for lost people like Marika when you get involved. Now that you know the need and you can make a difference, you know how vital it is that you get involved. There are many ways that you can do this. First of all, you can pray. Prayer is the most important thing you can do, actually. Every time that Jesus or his followers were about to do anything important, they stopped and prayed. In the book Miraculous Movements, Jerry Trousdale relates a story of how a missionary had a break breakdown in the middle of a hostile Muslim area. And he didn't know why he had to have that happen there, and he's telling God, this doesn't make any sense. So they walked to the nearest village, which is hostile to Christians. They're kind of worried, and they found out that an important person had just died there. And he felt like he was supposed to go pray for this person. He's like, are you kidding me? I can't go pray, I'm going to get killed. But he did it anyway. And what ended up happening was the person was raised to life, and the entire village eventually became Christians. If God can work like that, he can definitely use our prayers. The funny thing about prayer is that you should be surprised that when you pray for something, God might call you to get involved and to do it. In Matthew 9:34, Jesus tells us that we ought to pray for missionaries to be sent out on the field. If you're praying that people will reach out to the lost, he might use you in some way. Actually, all of us should be doing that in addition to prayer anyway. If you cannot go, then you could send. There's two aspects to this, sending and mobilizing. Sending basically entails giving support to missionaries, whether through contact or giving financially and praying for them. Mobilizing is even easier. Basically, it's just fanning people's flames. If you know somebody who's interested in missions, just encourage them. This may not seem like a big deal, but it really is. Not many people are willing to do hard things like this if they feel like nobody's behind it, nobody believes in it. Also, through your words, you can advocate for missions, and this is just bringing awareness to the marginalized, persecuted church, specific missionaries, whatever. Without having any visibility, it's really hard for anything to get off the ground. That's why you should make it a habit to advocate for kingdom work. Another way to help missions is to welcome. And there are two aspects to this one also. The first is to welcome back missionaries who are on furlough. This is huge. When they come back, whether for good or just for a visit, it's really hard to make the cultural change, and there's this real sense of disconnection. So just talking to them, welcoming them to your home, being interested in what they have to say, not treating them like strange species, really helps a lot. It's very encouraging. The other way is to welcome foreigners. Coming to a new country to start a new way of life is extremely difficult and very hard. And many immigrants, especially Muslim and Hindu immigrants, have never been welcomed to an American home. 80% of immigrants have never been welcomed to an American home. I find that really hard to believe. I think that's really sad. How can we show the love of Jesus to lonely people if we don't take the time to reach out to them? Phoenix is a massive refugee and foreign student city, and you won't have to look far to find a foreign student. The last way to get involved with missions is to give. I know you all think you're poor college students, and compared to the rest of middle-class Phoenix, we are kind of short on cash. However, we're still in the top 1% of the world financially. So we don't really have an excuse to not give, because there's a lot of people who are in far worse places who are still giving generously. Last week, I thought I didn't have enough money to give to a certain missions fund, and so I wasn't going to. And then I remembered that I had tweaked my budget so I could play laser tag. And if I'm going to do that, then I can definitely give. And if you guys have shelled out cash for Denny's or Starbucks or iTunes or anything like that, it's not necessary lately, you definitely can give a few dollars to a missions fund. There's many ways you can do this. For one, the ACU Liberia team is raising money right now. And the basketball team is also going to Europe this summer for a project. I'm sure they'd be thrilled if you contributed to that. Also, I want to mention a fun giving opportunity that my boyfriend Ben and I are organizing. On May 18th in the morning, we're putting on a 5K race walk to raise money for ministry work in Africa. We're actually going there this summer. This money isn't for us. We have our plane ticket and everything paid for. It's for use on the actual ministry work that's going on right now. And it's going to be fun because free t-shirts and prizes, and that's my plug for that. But that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because there are hurting people there. There's a little boy somewhere who's wondering when he gets to eat next, wondering if his sister's going to survive from malaria fever. And we can help people like that if we can bring people together and try to make a difference. Without us, people like that may never survive the week, and they haven't heard the name of Jesus, and that's tragic. Without a strong network of Christians supporting foreign missions, those who go to the field, they can't do their work effectively. That's why it's imperative that every one of us get involved. Why would we want to miss out on God's grand plan and the blessings that come from participation? Don't wait around and plan to do it later. This is your life right now. I know sometimes college seems like a transition phase, but it's not. It's life, and I had to learn that. It isn't limbo, and it's not a space-time where we're not doing anything important. This is our lives, and this is why we have to get involved. 3 out of 7 people have never heard the gospel. Let's make that 0 out of 7. Thank you.